Get this thing on. All right, man. So we are recording again, and this right here will be the straight up one.
All right. Welcome. This is episode number 4. I think I'm going to let everybody in on this mistake I made. Right.
Okay.
We're re-recording this episode because I apparently don't know how to use a computer after 25 years of using them. I'm going to blame it on the fact that it was a Mac, and I ended up erasing or accidentally deleting this episode that we're getting ready to re-record now. So this is an interesting test, right? Because we'll get to test what happens when you re-record an episode. Maybe this one will be better. Maybe it'll be worse than the last one. The good news though is, Kevin, is that no one will know whether it was better than the last one or not, except for us, because it got destroyed. I'm Kyle, and I have Kevin Logan with me, and we're going to talk about this week again, starting small and knowing the value of your time. So, what's your week been like?
My week has been a good week, and actually, springtime. So, doing some spring cleaning and dusting off some things, and coming up and finding some resources that I've used in the past, actually a very long time ago. However, I'm now seeing where there's a platform for me to reintroduce these particular items again in a different type of content, and definitely more so, specifically speaking, in the digital content. So,
Okay.
I'm working on a lot of different projects and different online classes and blogs and other types of resources. So, dusting these things off, as a term that you use earlier, on into the vault, and not really purposely thinking I was going into the vault, kind of like an accidental thing, and reaching back there and just stumbling upon some things, saying, "Oh wow, I forgot about this one, forgot about that one." So I've started to reposition those things in front of me so that I can bring them back up for use, because I think they'll be definitely good resources for someone.
So these are like, maybe you wrote a paper or an essay on a particular topic a year ago, and then finding it later or finding it today, and it then saying, hey, there's some value still in this thing, even though I wrote it a year ago.
Yeah, actually, I had it was either a workshop or a seminar that I did. I really can't remember, to be honest with you. And I always put together booklets when I was in this booklet phase I was going through. And this one right here is called The Evolution of, and then it's got a place for you to put your name and a date. And at the very top, it says, if you don't start, you can't finish.
Okay, wow. When did you find that one?
I actually did that. I did that some years ago. I'm going to say this right here had to be at least 4 to 5 years ago.
Awesome.
That I did this particular workshop.
That's strange, because that's exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah. We seem to run like that, don't we?
Yeah, it seems to happen that way. I haven't figured out the algorithm for figuring that one out yet, but it does happen quite often. It's scary.
Right.
So, I was in Vegas this week. I went to a conference, the Micropreneur Conference, Monday and Tuesday. Very good conference for bootstrapped founders or self-funded founders.
Okay.
Learned a lot, met some good people, and then obviously the sunshine was one of the highlights, especially coming from the East Coast, where it's what is it? I think it's not bad today. It's 50 or so, but Yesterday it was, well, I'll put it to you like this. It wasn't 85 and sunny with low humidity, which is the way it was in Vegas for the last two
There you go.
days. I know it wasn't that. And while I was sitting in the audience, I noticed someone was using this plugin for Chrome. One of the presenters was using this plugin for Google Chrome, the Google Chrome browser. And this plugin, I use the same plugin. And
Okay.
the plugin is called Momentum,
Mm-hmm.
and it is for the Google Chrome browser. And it basically what it does is its objective is to keep you on task for the day,
Right.
whatever that task might be. So you install it, and it basically every time you attempt to open up a new tab to do something else that you shouldn't be doing, you get a really nice picture, a clock, and a sentence saying something to the effect of "What are you doing today?" or "What should you be doing today?" And then there's a blank spot for you to fill in whatever that should be.
Right.
And it might sound like something that's very simple and basic, but the last time I checked, simple and basic things seem to work really, really well. You know, and this has worked. It's been working for me. I've just started. I only use it a week, but it does help me remember every time I go to open that new. Because usually when you open that tab, it means you're getting ready to start doing something else.
Yeah. More often than not, it does. You know me, I'm still pen and paper on it. And one of the things that I do is write everything down and check it off as I go.
Right.
And as my day goes in doing that, I even add to my list. So I can look back and say, wow, today I did a whole lot of things. And of course, I can see the subsets within them as well. If I have one particular thing that I need to do for one company or one client, and it may be one client, but it may be a couple of different things that I need to do under that. I put those down there because then that helps me to evaluate the time spent.
Right. And I guess you still use a lot of pen and paper. I really am not a pen and paper person, but I think that's one of the interesting things about a lot of the conversations that we have is the end result's the same. All right. I think
Yes.
people tend to get hung up on, I throw the plug-in out there because I am active on the computer, right? But the point of, the point here is that it doesn't really matter. Like, be aware of where your time is going and be aware that you could be veering off task, right? And that's all this plugin does. It just reminds you that remember what you really are supposed to be doing. Obviously, it doesn't stop you. Like the browser's not going to shut down or anything like that. But
Right.
you will just get that reminder that some of us need when you are, hey, just letting you know that you're going down the wrong street here.
Yeah, yeah, you're getting ready to venture off, because the different things that we go to, the different sites, they will take us sometimes further and further, maybe even off course, I'll say. And sometimes it's on course. Sometimes I know you've had the same thing. We'll stumble upon something, even though we may have been in search for something else, but it won't be something that's not of value that we can't say, wow, you know what, I can use this for something else that I was working on, or wow, here's a piece to a puzzle, or here's the beginning of something.
So why don't we just go right into the first topic? And
Okay.
and it's no secret, right? As I said earlier, the first version of this recording that we had done, I destroyed by mistake. So I guess one of the benefits is now, because I already had show notes for it that were going to be posted, I can refer to those as actually a reminder of what we talked about in the first place. Um, One of the benefits of documenting things, right?
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was going to make out. Had you not said it, I was going to make sure that you said that is when you're doing something, the fact that you did take notes on it enables us to go back. So things happen in life.
They do. And although we don't really talk a lot about, we talk about getting started as entrepreneurs. That's the objective that we discussed the audience that we would try to speak to when we started this. But I think I'm going to take this opportunity to throw a shameless plug in here for a book that I'm working on called Systematize. It's at systematizebook.com, and I'm only mentioning it now because what happened with this podcast that we do is a primary reason why you want to document the things that you do in your business. And that's partially what the book's about, business processes, documenting what you do. This is a prime example because although this is a small podcast and it's just you and I, if I was making a living doing this, it could have been a big problem if I wasn't able to quickly get back to this documentation that basically essentially tells me exactly what we've done before.
Yeah, it allows you to repeat what you've done. That's simply what just comes to my mind. It allows for repeating what was initially done and replicating what was initially done over and over again. Even the show notes of taking those particular bullet points and putting them in, it's setting a format and a model that can be used and expanded and
replicated.
Just for someone's own particular needs.
Exactly, which is what process is, right? Here's you first identify what it is you need to do to solve whatever your problem is, and you tweak it, and once it's performing at some level with some level of reasonable output, right, that you want or desired output, you document it so that it can be repeated and handed off to someone else to do. I mean, that's how businesses grow.
Right.
But enough for my commercial. I appreciate it. I'll send you a royalty check for helping me with the commercial.
Not a problem.
So what we want to hit on today is small. The importance of the benefits of starting small. And, one of my biggest things was the last time we spoke on this was that when you start small, you increase your odds of success because you don't have so many obstacles psychologically in front of you. You don't have the same number of obstacles as you do when you think about starting big. And the one example that I gave was that if someone's a dressmaker and by hobby, they already have dresses that they made because they make them for, even if they're only dresses that, let's just say Susan, right? Susan made 3 dresses and she's a dressmaker by hobby. She has 3 dresses in her closet, which are demos of her work, right? Susan may think that she needs to open a business, right? She needs to go out and borrow money, open up a storefront, get the business loans, do all of those things that we associate with traditional business before she's actually in business. And from there, which is one way to do it, right? But
exactly.
That's not the only way to do it. And what I was thinking of was the farmer's market, where Susan could take all 3 of her dresses that she's already made, right?
That's right.
Take those down to a farmer's market and put those up for sale, and she's in business, but immediately because she started small. And from that point, yeah, I said farmer's market, and then I saw something happen on the other end of the Skype conversation with you. So, see, can you what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first off, on that starting small scale, the word that comes to my mind is juggling, because when you go at something larger, you're juggling more as just the one person that you are. When you're small, you're able to gauge and take on as you see fit and as you see the need. And the farmer's market, as we talk about the farmer period anyway, in a lot of our discussions, being the first entrepreneur, around, when you talk about going to that farmer's market, you're just talking about marketing, you're talking about promotions, you're talking about being able to do so many things with an existing audience that you didn't even bring together. You're allowing someone else to bring these people together because that's what they do. And then as the individual who's a dressmaker, what they do is can concentrate on that product of creating those particular items, those dresses, 2 dresses, 3 dresses, whatever. And then they can also take samples of other things that they've done so that individuals can see, well, what you have is really not what I'm looking for. But then once you can use technology, take your laptop, you can have a projector showing these things running. You can take your portfolio, your written notebook, hardcover portfolio, and allow other individuals to flip through and just be able to size individuals up, take measurements, and tell them I can do this and that and the other, and just really have an array of opportunity from individuals that are coming from all walks of life. Your farmer's market, it sells your if you talk about the contents that you can get there, you can get cooked foods, you can get uncooked foods, you can get raw vegetables, you can get your other produce, and it comes in different types of forms for you to partake of. So that particular environment just sparks a whole lot for me as far as anyone going into your different businesses, different places I've visited of farmer markets. Individuals have handbags and have particular handcrafted items that they're selling. And it's a real business. And your time spent, you have a lot of different things that go into that cost segment. I think I spoke on that a little bit of how much time did it take you to make those dresses, and what about the time to get to where you were getting? And you have to add up all those dollars and the food that you eat or items that you may buy. Any business, you have to take lunch. So as that business owner that's sitting there, you've got an opportunity. If you're selling these dresses, let's say for the sake of easy numbers, $25 a piece, and 3 of them go for $75. Well, what if you didn't sell any of your items that day, but then you took in 8 orders and you took a deposit down from each one of those orders of at least 50% to cover yourself? You still made money, although you didn't intently sell what you had showing or on display.
Yeah, so you're taking it to another place by pointing out something else that is another value of starting small. We did a podcast before about just getting started to begin with, taking action. I believe that was episode number 2. Mm-hmm. And all of these things that you're pointing out are why you take action versus planning, right? You plan, you can only do so much with a plan, especially if it's something that you've never done that you're planning for in the first place.
Right.
I think it's one of Jason Fried's books. He talks about that, like how can you plan for something if you've never done it before? We know in the corporate world, planning is essential. But my point was that all of those things you're talking about, time and materials, food, gas, all of the things that you learn about that trip that you take to the farmer's market that day.
That's right.
Can all be things that you do immediately. Like,
yes,
you can find a farmer's market, I guess in most places. We live in a city, so everyone may not have the same level of access, but if you can find yourself a farmer's market going on in I would say most city and rural areas, quite frankly, because a lot of the ones in this area tend to be outside of the city anyway. Mm-hmm. But that's something that you can take action on and start with immediately. And once you get started, you're going to learn things. All of that stuff you named, taking the orders. I mean, you grab something out of the closet that you already have that you made, and you use that as a demo, and now you're taking the orders. Well, I mean, you're pre-ordering, right? Those are pre-orders. Those are people who basically They have validated your idea. They have validated the quality of your work, and they're validating to you by giving you money and taking and making those pre-orders that you have a real business, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I'll take that any day of the week, over talking to somebody, giving them whatever 2-3 grand to write up a business plan, getting a micro loan from a bank, which is another pain in the butt. Trying to find some reasonable space somewhere, which, I don't know how people who have storefronts, do that, because everything is so expensive. You do all that and they open up the doors and then nobody's there. Now you've started big, because that process I just went through. That's several months, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
You have no idea whether you're going to have customer number one or not. And a lot of people end up burning through all of the money and resources that it took them to get to that point before they even know if they have a business. The scenario we just laid out while we're just having a conversation, right? We're not saying that this will be the end result for everyone. But guess what? If you go down there, if Susan goes down there and she gets 0 pre-orders, and she catches a flat tire on the way down there, or it rains when cats and dogs when she's there, what was her out-of-pocket cost for all of that stuff?
Exactly.
That's
just a good place to test the market, and you can just finally see where you want to go. Who are you appealing to? Even though sometimes I believe there's a great mix of individuals that attend these particular events, you can really find out a lot from your marketing research. You're actually doing marketing research right then and there, unbeknownst to you.
Right. So when I on my flight out to Vegas, right, I happened to, believe it or not, be sitting next to someone who, of all things, was a farmer. Right? It was I don't know what's the word. What's the word? It was really
Wow.
It was really ironic, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I talk you guys up all the time to my friends as the original entrepreneur. And the dude's head instantly started shaking. Yes, he was like, we are essentially, he said, that's all I am. He said, I might not be building computers, but I am an entrepreneur. He said, we cultivate we harvest our land. We have processes, we have people, we have a market. He said the only difference to his type of business is because there are a lot of farmers in this country, right? Is that when they get hit with something like fuel price increases, for example, he said it really drastically impacts how farmers make their living, because it really is the same for us as well, right? But he just laid it out to me in a way that I had never, in the level of detail that you could only get from a farmer, right? It was like, corn, fuel goes up and people think it stops there. Like, it's not just the fuel for our tractors. He was like, the cost of corn starts to go up. And he said, well, I feed my animals with corn. So now I'm getting hit there. I'm getting hit with the fuel that I have to buy for the tractors. I got other farmers now that are cutting prices, so I'm getting hit there because they're cutting prices so that they can make more sales to compensate for this fuel cost. Like, their whole ecosystem gets interrupted when the gas goes up a few cents. And he said something else I thought was really funny. He said, well, funny, depending, I guess if you're a farmer, it's not that funny, but he said, and these guys, and they never lower their prices after they raise them. They never lower them. I said, well, that part I can relate to. I said, everybody can relate to that part, right? Because the $3 gas doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And everything that was raised, everything that some business use the cost increases of fuel to justify, they don't seem to be having any conversations now about bringing those prices back down for the consumer. So
no, and those prices aren't going to come back down. But what you described, and what a lot of individuals don't think about, from my point of view, is that he spoke about, as those prices in fuel goes up, which costs him more on the raw resources side for his business, but then also to be able to get his product in the best particular buying shape that it can be, he's still getting kind of like the double taxation. He's still getting hit on the other side
Right.
on the cost to be able to do it, because he may not be producing corn, but his vehicles are running off of that resource of fuel, and then it takes fuel for his particular farm animals to be able to get what they need so that they can grow to the maximum potential that they need to in order to go for top dollar.
Correct. So the whole, you raise the price once, it doesn't just affect one thing; it affects multiple things.
Basic economics 101 there. That's what that is. And if people can look at that, I think they'll have a new respect for everything, and then that will also help them engaging where they need to be, especially for the small person coming out. They always want to go low. Is this too much? Or I'll change this. I'll change that. I don't always suggest that. My only thing is just do your research, and then you're justifying it based off of that. You're that educated producer, so you can educate your consumers.
Yeah, you mentioned another thing too. You mentioned earlier, we were talking about the fact. All right, so the farmers market, I was saying you can't necessarily always get to one, depending on where you are. I don't know what, people live in different places that have different access to different things. But if you have an internet connection, Etsy is a place for, you could call it it's a farmer's market style of place where people who create things, it's a marketplace for people who create things to sell their products. And their customer tends to be, as you said earlier, their customers tend to all come to this place looking for those types of things. There's a group out there, there's an audience out there that they're only interested in buying things that were handcrafted by real human beings versus something that was shipped here from another unnamed country.
The mass produced.
Right, exactly. And there's a big market for that in the United States. And not only that, what I like about that market is, and I'm not only talking Etsy right now, I'm just talking, and that's ESTY.com, I believe it's .com. We'll link to it.
I believe so.
Link to it in the notes in the blog post where this podcast will be. Not only that, I noticed that people who do handcrafted work charge a premium above the mass-produced stuff, and they don't seem to have a problem getting it, which I love, right? Because you can't compete with, I'll just use Walmart as an example, right? You really can't compete with Walmart. I mean, the prices are crazy in that place for some things, right?
Right.
But only they can sell it at that price because they buy so much of it. But I love nothing more than to see somebody who makes furniture, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I know a person who makes furniture as a hobby, not full time, but as a hobby, and they make these wooden chairs, and they sell these wood. They're completely the opposite of a mass-produced environment, right? They make the chairs. They go out and they pick really nice wood. They take their time. It may take him several weeks to make one chair. And then after he gets a couple of them, 2 to 4 of them together, he sells them as in a bunch. And, he may sell the chairs for $500-$600 for basically like $100 a piece.
Right.
But the chairs versus you can go to Walmart and maybe grab yourself a fold-up card table chair for $10. But guess what? This chair is going to be around for a very long time. And it has some character. It has some life. Somebody put time and energy into it. And people don't mind paying for, a lot of people do not mind paying for that kind of quality. And some people actually prefer that to the mass-produced stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the things you brought back a memory from some years ago where my grandfather, after he stopped farming, he started building picnic tables.
Wow. Okay.
And I had forgotten about that. And I purchased a lot of different handcrafted things. But one of the things you mentioned that just jumped out to me was, those individuals, they can't compete. And my personal view is they're not supposed to. I was introduced to that statement, that phrase, a few weeks ago, competing, and instantly what came to my mind, we don't have to compete, but we can complete. So the individuals who are willing to pay that top dollar for the handmade, they're looking for completion of something. They know they can go out and buy the mass produced one, but they're looking for that uniqueness. As I know I do when I buy the handcrafted, that unique things that completes that particular void or whatever it may be. And it may not be a bad void, it just may be this is my particular area of interest. And this is what I've been looking for, and I found it, and I'm willing to pay whatever price is for it because I now gain satisfaction from it. So just on the opposite end of the spectrum from competing, I would advise anyone, complete your customers.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that sounds like another way to look at what you just said is for people who maybe don't know what they want to do. They know they want to be business owners, but they don't know what they want to do. That completing your customers is a good lead, a good way to get started with figuring out or finding an idea.
Right.
And, I'm not even sure I've ever. I read a lot of stuff about startups and starting businesses. I'm not sure I've ever heard complete your customer before. And it makes sense because we perceive there's competition everywhere all around us just because, there are businesses all around us. But just because there's a business there does not, and that is your competition or is in a space you're considering going into. And I hear this a lot. People say, I don't want to do that because somebody else is already, like they have an idea, they Google it, and they find somebody else doing it, and then automatically they scratch the idea. Like, oh, scratch that one off the list. Somebody beat me to it. And it's like, what you really saw was a website. That doesn't tell you anything. That doesn't tell you whether they have customers. It doesn't tell you whether the customers they have are happy. It doesn't tell you a lot of things. So, you really gotta. But you just gave a really good place to start. Find people, look for the competition, right? Look for the competition and talk to their customers. Whether you find them on message boards online or out in the street, and you ask them what they don't like about what they're already getting. And I think you'd be hard pressed not to find at least some people who will tell you what they do not like about this particular person's product, and make your business that. And then you will, guess what? You will be completing customers, and you will also be differentiating yourself from everybody else, which is like the thing that everybody will ask you when you get started. Like, hey, so what makes you different than such and such? Well, the minute you tell them what you do, if you build a business around what they don't do, everybody will get it. Like, people will see the value in it right away. Most importantly, your customers will see the value of it right away. And to go a step further, their customers might see the value in your competition. Their customers may see the value in what you're doing right away because you're making them complete. You're doing something well and specializing in it that they're not doing at all.
Right.
So that's major.
And the difference between those two words is just one letter, and that's the L.
All right, enlighten me.
Compete. COMPETE. Complete.
Oh, okay.
COMPLET.
Oh man, so you getting all Scrabble on
Yeah, you know how my mind goes, man. And I'm just sitting here looking at it. When I wrote it down after you said that, I was like, wow, it's just one letter that changes the whole offering that an individual or company can have if they institute what you just said.
Okay, this is so it's been great. We're signing off here. This is Kyle and Kevin, and we will see you next week.
All right.
Thank you.